I have a shameless plug. I really appreciate you guys listening in some ways to my conversations about identity, but did you know that chatting isn't the only thing I do? I love to paint. And now you can have a bit of my art in your house. It also makes great gifts, by the way. So check it out at aubreyjeanart.etsy.com. That's aubreyjeanart.etsy.com. And also hit me up on Instagram at my handle, aubreyjeanart. I'd love to hear from you. Welcome to 132nd Cherokee. Join me as I explore why being 132nd of something doesn't keep me from bragging about it. I'm your host, Aubrey Jean. With me today is the one, the only grandma. Well, I have another grandma, but she is dead, so she can't be talking to me on the podcast. Grandma talks to me a little bit about adopting Cherokee heritage, about being Cherokee and how she came to love that. She illuminates a little bit more of our family history about the Cherokee line, and some of her illuminations cast a lot of other shadows. So it's kind of interesting. I've got a lot more questions than I had when I started the episode. I'll be doing a lot of fact checking later, but this is my grandma. Hope you enjoy.
Hey, I'm a painter, a writer, a musician, and now I'm an anchorman. That's how it works, right? I'm using the Anchor app to make my first podcast, and it is free. There are certain tools that I use to record and edit my podcast, and it's right on my phone or computer, and it distributes my podcast for me so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more, and I can make money from this podcast, which would be crazy because it's all about my family. But it's everything I need to make a podcast in one place, and you can too. If I can do it, you can. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Your dad, Warren, the thing about him being Cherokee, how did he, start? Did he start talking about that? And did you get that from him?
His life was not easy, but then some point he got to go to agriculture school, and he got a degree in agriculture.
I didn't know that.
So Grandpa Dorning gave my mom and dad 20 acres over by them so that he could raise cattle and stuff.
So in your memories of your dad, when did being Cherokee become significant?
To him, it was always significant.
Did he grow up with traditions?
They would sneak onto the reservation and over by Natchez. Well, it's closer to Yakima, and they would sneak onto that reservation and they would watch the traditions that went on. If the Indians had caught them, they would have killed them.
You think so?
Oh yeah, they were sure of that.
Did they? And that wasn't their tribe, though. I mean, why did they sneak onto that reservation? Just because it was close?
Well, they just wanted to get an idea of what it was, whether it was Cherokee or Yakima Indian, similar dress, similar food, similar things, not all the same, but similar. That was a big deal for him growing up. He could identify with that.
Who told him about it? I mean, if his dad didn't want to have any part of it and he even tossed out any of the relics that he had, who told him?
His dad told him.
Oh, so his dad flat out told him even though he didn't want anything to do with it?
And they begged him not to sign that letter to the government, and he said, I am a free man here. And it was there for years. It's gone now, but it was there for years.
Who begged him not to sign the letter? Was that the kids?
The kids begged him not to sign that.
Oh, so that letter came when those kids were around.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
They were older then because they were working, Bob and Dad and Jim were working in the woods.
Oh.
And so they were in their middle 20s then. All of them, Jim, Dad, because he would have had the 20 acres in Oklahoma. It would have been his, and then his family, if they were raised there. He voted. He was able to vote. as a free American. And he said, no, take this and shove it.
Man, I would love to get my hands on that original letter, you know?
Yeah, no kidding.
That would be a great piece of family history.
Well, mainly it was the act of Congress, because then they didn't have to pay him any Indian money.
Because they gave people 20 acres?
Well, if he'd lived on the reservation, it was like a reservation, then they would have paid him money to live there.
Oh, I see.
And so when he sent that letter, the government was probably jumping up and down for joy.
Yeah.
You know, one more person, one more family that they wouldn't have to pay.
So when you were growing up, Grandma, what significance did it take for you to be Cherokee?
When I was little, I really thought that it was great. Even though I don't look Cherokee, but in my spirit, I feel more Cherokee than I look. Does that make sense?
Tell me about that.
Well, when we would play Cowboys and Indians, I got to be the Indian.
Well, that's exciting.
You know, we'd chase each other outside around the house and stuff, you know. I remember I'd be going, you know, and I'd be chasing them and they'd be running. Yeah, I was Indian.
Did your siblings feel that same way, to your knowledge?
Yeah, because they felt the freedom. I mean, even though we were little white kids, there was more freedom for us when we felt like we were Indians.
In what way? So when you were little, you felt like, when you say you felt free of those constraints, like constraints of society or government, you didn't have to go get a fishing license, you didn't have to go get a hunting license, you felt like the people on the reservation could just hunt and fish at will, so that was really appealing?
Well, it was like God gave them this, and I got to be a part of it.
Were you ever sad that the Cherokee Nation was in Oklahoma and you were in Washington State?
Yeah, but I think the thing that made me the saddest was the Trail of Tears, where what Indians had got off the reservation out of Oklahoma were trying to get into Canada so that they could be free, and they murdered many of them.
Well, yeah, I didn't know that they're going to Canada from Oklahoma, but when they're going to North Carolina and the East Coast, and they were conscripted to move themselves over to Oklahoma.
They didn't want to go back to Oklahoma. They wanted to go to Canada so they could be free.
So they can get out of the United States.
You would have thought that the government would have just let them go, because then it would be less problems for them, but it made them mad that they wouldn't conform and stay on the reservation.
Did you learn about that as a kid, the Trail of Tears?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I learned about the Appaloosa horses that they bred and raised. When Robin got her horse.
Yeah, April.
There was quite a bit of history that I learned then when I went to, I think it's northern Idaho.
Yeah.
Where the Cherokee chief had his statue, and a statue of a horse like April, an Appaloosa.
I will definitely have to look that up, because I'm not sure there's a lot of Cherokee in Idaho, but there are different tribes. So I'll have to look it up.
There's a whole bunch of different tribes, yeah. When I was with Grandpa on the truck, every time that we came to...
Did you feel connection to them?
Yeah. I felt like I would ask God to forgive the Americans for taking their land, and forgive them for, they thought it was really funny to give them booze and get them drugged up. That's what we've done to them, and it's taken away their pride. It's taken away their will to even do anything to better themselves. One reason I never drank was being part Indian. I could end up being a lush, is an alcoholic now. And that's really sad.
It is really sad. It's a disease, and so it's a genetic It can be genetic,
Yeah.
and so that would be...
It is. It's family genetic.
So of all the... Now, we're not just Cherokee. We're a lot of different bloodlines from different
Yes.
places. Are there any of the other bloodlines that you feel connection to?
Well, let's see. I'm German. I'm Jewish German. And I feel real connected to the Jews.
Is that because of your
And I'm
Christian
English.
heritage?
Yes.
Yeah.
I had to learn that the hard way. I always thought the Jews were these horrible people that killed Jesus, and God told me, read your Bible because you're just as guilty as they were.
Mm.
And I went, whoops. and I have such a love for them now. It's unbelievable.
You said we were English as well?
A little bit of English, yeah. Grandpa Dorning was part English.
Mm-hmm.
Now, somewhere along the line, and I haven't been able to find it out, there was some Indian there too, but I don't know what kind or where it came from or how much.
And how do you know there was Indian? Was it just because people were talking about it?
Yeah. Grandpa was talking about it. See, way back then, it was like a sin to be an Indian because, they portrayed every one of us as a bunch of heathens. Part of that's true, but then they were heathens too when they would come in and murder tribes, children, women, and old men.
Yeah, they've got a lot to answer for. We've got a lot to answer for as the occupying nation,
yeah.
I guess.
My kids, their dad, Monty, is Dutch, Irish, Scotch, and Swede. The most stubbornest group on the face of the earth.
Grandma, we're not trying to judge any races here on this podcast.
I'm just saying.
So do you feel like you passed down any like heritage traits to your kids?
Well, when they were growing up, we would either be at his mom's for Christmas or Thanksgiving, or we would be at my mom's. Then I thought that we did pass along things, like Christmas was important and Thanksgiving and stuff, but now we don't have that anymore. I'm not able to do huge meals. I thought I was getting a big enough house so that I could have meals here, but
the family kept growing.
Yeah, they kept growing.
Yeah, the family kept growing. We outgrew your house. And I like the idea of making your family as well. You can be born into a family, but you can also choose people to be part of your family.
Yeah, absolutely.
So can we get back to the Cherokee thing? Did you talk about being Cherokee to Mom and my uncles?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I told them about it, but it wasn't so prevalent for them.
Why is that?
And my Uncle Bob and my Uncle Jim, they looked real Indian. They had the dark hair and the darker skin. My Aunt Marion and my Aunt Elsie were light like me. They looked out of place, but they were all from the same mom.
Right. But so your kids look pretty white.
They look more like the Dutch, Irish, Scotch, and Swede.
Yeah.
And and the German, they're the whiter deal. So their Indian is just not all that much. But I am a Card-Packin Indian. I got me a card.
I know you do. I know you do. Is there any Cherokee Nation things you've adopted?
The Cherokee were a peaceful people, and they were farmers, and they grew gardens, and they grew spices, and they raised cattle. And so early on in my life with Monty, we had gardens, and we had, cows that we were going to butcher, and pigs that we were going to butcher, and chickens. That part of we could go fish, although we had to pay for it, and we could hunt. So that part of it was really like the Cherokee. I'd go marching out.
Marching out where?
Marching out in the woods and shoot a deer.
Yeah.
When my kids were younger, because we needed food that we couldn't afford.
Right.
I would work a job. I'd come over and home and take the kids to their games, and then I would find time to weed the garden, and I canned everything.
Yeah, you guys were really self-reliant.
Yeah. I canned everything from the garden. I canned the meat that we would get. So,
Yeah.
I don't have a big smokehouse, but I had a smoker, and I could smoke some of the meat. And I even, when I would make my ketchup, I would actually let it burn a little bit on the bottom.
Uh-huh.
And then when you stirred it up, it tastes smoky.
Oh.
My dad would talk to me about the Indians, about when they would kill something, they would use every part of it,
When you guys went hunting, he would chat with you about that. That's kind of neat.
And then my grandpa, his dad, Grover Cleveland, would say, when you're hunting, be sure that if there's big cats, they're not following you, because they'll hunt you before you realize you're supposed to hunt them.
Yeah, that's scary and true. I think it's stories like that, with you telling me stories like that when I was little, that made me super afraid of the dark. I did not want to go in the woods. Going hunting, that sounds crazy, because there's going to be big cats that follow us, and I did not want to go. Yeah. There's a reason why I never volunteered to go with the uncles to go hunting.
Grandpa Dorning had horses, and he logged in this area.
Yeah.
And I was standing under a tree, and he told me, I was really little. I couldn't have been maybe 5. He told me, stand still. I stood still, and he shot a bobcat, and it almost fell on me.
Oh, my goodness. That is crazy.
Yeah. So, yeah, you do have to be careful when you go in the woods.
Yeah. That's excitingly crazy. I just appreciate where I live right now, in the middle of a town.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any bobcats roaming around here. I haven't heard of anything, so.
Well, the thing is about this whole thing is, the more people cut down the trees in the forest and take away the land, the more that they're forcing them towards civilization.
Yeah, you're right. It's a problem of our own creating, our own making.
Yeah. Okay, when we lived in Oregon, or in California, over by Healdsburg, California, there was a huge graveyard there. Well, us kids would go out into the graveyard, and we would find arrowheads.
Uh-huh.
So that meant that there were some kind of Indian there. I still have some of those arrowheads. Janice brought me a dream catcher. It's a huge one, and Monty bought me a huge dream catcher that I have hanging in my house. Now, I appreciate it for what it is, but I don't believe that way. I follow Jesus, and he's the one that gives me my dreams.
You recognize it for something that kind of is an homage to your heritage.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So, I had people come in my house, and they were really disgusted that I had these things hanging up. And then Shirley made me a puzzle. She put it together, and she put it on something so it would stay. And she knows I like eagles. So at the top of it is a big eagle. In the center, there is a woman pouring water in from a jar into water. It's really pretty. It's got feathers around it and different things. But she made that for me because she thought I would like it, because I have the Indian heritage.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that we as a family kind of pay tribute to you in any sort of thing that looks Native American. Regardless if it's Cherokee or not.
Right. And when your mom and dad took us over in Utah and stuff to that beautiful, we went to all of that stuff. We stopped by the Indians, and they would be Navajo. I don't just collect from one point, I collect from others too.
Right. Yeah, I remember. I don't know who it was. In my head, there's somebody who collects, I don't know if it's Melody, like turquoise jewelry and silver jewelry because of the Indian heritage?
I think that if you say, okay, I'm Cherokee and none of the rest of the Indians matter, you're judging. I give money to a orphanage in South Dakota, and they're the Lakota Indians.
Mm-hmm. So you don't just discriminate between different tribes?
No. It's just like in every group, Aubrey.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have good people and you're going to have bad.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. That's the danger of stereotyping one group or stereotyping a group, is that there's going to be good and bad. Right.
I have you know what a phoenix is?
Yes.
Looks like an eagle.
Yes.
And I have it in turquoise, and it represents coming out of something and being better than what you were. Like
reborn into something?
Yeah, and I wear that to church, and everybody goes, that's a phoenix. And I said, yes, it is. It's turquoise and silver. They say, well, why do you wear that? As we get older, we change. I want some changes in my life from the Lord that will make me better. I want to come out of the ashes of my sin and into his righteousness.
Yeah. So I guess one last question, and it's just a hypothetical, but for the pieces of culture that you feel like make up your identity, what would happen if you find out irrevocably that you aren't actually those things?
Well, if I found that out, I would wonder why the Lord allowed me to have such a strong identity with the Indians and with the Jews.
Right.
Apparently my German family from Germany were part Jews, but they got out before the Holocaust.
Well, way before the Holocaust.
He showed me that I was really wrong about thinking that they were so rotten.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to repent. And then he gave me empathy for them that is beyond belief. Well, Grandpa Dorning, like I said, was English, but he farmed and worked in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And Grandma Dorning would get up at the break of dawn to make him a huge breakfast because he'd be gone until evening. And then be able to pack him a lunch so that he would have something to eat. And so she would get up and fix potatoes and bacon and eggs and biscuits.
I love that breakfast. It's really healthy for your heart, too.
She really took pains to make sure that he ate well.
Yeah.
And she was a hard worker. She died of cancer.
Oh.
And he died of Alzheimer's. But one thing that I really remembered about him is he smoked a pipe, and that pipe smoke smelled so good. And he was really a quiet man when he was in the house.
Mm-hmm.
But when he was out working with the horses, if they wouldn't behave, he wasn't so quiet.
That's funny.
And the thing that always got me, Grandma's name was Julia, but he'd call her his old heifer.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to think as a little kid, wow, that's awful.
Mm-hmm.
But that was his way of showing affection, because the English are not real affectionate.
I see.
So
understated.
And he would tell me, the corn in the gardens talk and go out and sit down on the ground and listen. And I would go out into the garden, and it would be real hot, like in October,
mm-hmm.
and the corn was just about ready to pick. And so when the wind would blow through the tops of the corn, it actually sounded like it was talking.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's
yeah.
Interesting. That's a fun memory.
But Grandpa Dorning thought the sun rose and set in me.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I was his girl out of all of the kids.
Aw.
There were 10 kids, boys and girls, and I was his favorite.
Take that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do a footnote to share with you guys all the facts I checked in this episode, because if this is a podcast about discovery, I might as well be discovering things during that time that would be doing such a thing. And so that's something that might be connected to something I find out later on about my family in the episode with my sister. So stay tuned for that. She talked about the Appaloosa. My mom had an Appaloosa horse, and she said that the Cherokee had Appaloosa, and it's actually the Nez Perce in the Pacific Northwest that developed the Appaloosas. Cherokee are not commonly found in Idaho. They didn't land in Idaho when they were forcibly removed from the East Coast, and of course they originated in the East Coast. She talked about a chief with a horse statue in northern Idaho, and I think she's talking about the Crazy Horse Memorial in South Dakota of the Lakota Indian Crazy Horse. So there's no chief statue in North Idaho that I could find. She said that the Cherokee were farmers, they raised cattle, and they had gardens. And I think that's true. So they are an agrarian culture, which is agriculture. They own land for farming, etc. And then she talked about the Trail of Tears. So the Trail of Tears did not go up to Canada. Indians weren't forcibly removed to Canada. In fact, Indians tried to escape to Canada when they're being forced to be removed to different reservations, as found with the Chief Joseph Band of Nez Perce in the Pacific Northwest. There's a story in the 1870s about their band trying to escape to Canada, and he surrendered about 40 miles south of the border. The Trail of Tears, they were forced displacements from the Indian Removal Act from 1830 to 1838, and they incorporated many tribes: Cherokee, Muskogee, Seminole, Chickasaw, Choctaw, and these were eastern tribes that were moved into the Midwest. That is our footnote for the day. Footnote! One 30-second Cherokee with Aubrey Jean, and with all the favors I can cash in. Produced by me, Aubrey. Executive produced by nobody, because I don't know what that means. The Anchor app by Spotify holds my hand for all the engineering. The music is also found on Anchor. You can rate and review this show on many podcast platforms someday, and you might find your review featured on a future episode. Or I might burn it in effigy. Got comments? Send me a message at anchor.fm/Aubrey-Jean. That's anchor.fm/Aubrey-Jean.